Hello, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about art a lot, actually, between the 3 uploads or the hour-long upload, if that's the one you're watching, or half hour, sorry. Um, Now, it was going to be an hour, but that was scripted, and I had the entire first episode scripted, and I recorded some of it and listened back to it, and it felt more like I was talking at the viewer, you, rather than talking to them. And the difference I feel is with this, it feels like more of a conversation. And with art, I feel like it definitely should be more of a conversation and not just a lesson. So, in this 3 part miniseries, we're going to be covering the importance of interpretation. Episode 2 will be the forms of art and how many people can use that to express themselves freely. And the 3rd episode will just be why it's important to me and what I think art is going to do to help me personally. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. The interpretation of art is important in itself because it shows you that 2 different people can see the same exact image in 2 different ways. I'm now going to put up a picture of a sunset, and I'm going to give you a couple seconds just to see what comes to mind when you look at it. Do you have your thoughts gathered? Now, where some of you may just look at it and be like, it's just a sunset. Like, it's cool, but it's just a sunset. Some of you may find it beautiful. Some of you may even trail off and just go look at other images of sunsets. But please don't do that until the video's over. No, I'm kidding. But that's the thing. There's no wrong answer there. You could have any feeling about that, and you would be correct, because art is up to interpretation, which is the main point I want to get across in this video. I'm going to show a piece now. I don't remember his name, but it will be on screen with it. Is a piece of art that I came across which actually stunted this entire special, that I don't know, I still can't describe it. But looking at it, it makes me profoundly sad in a way that I can't really put into words. And I also showed it to 2 other people. One of them saying, yeah, it's really good. The other one saying, it doesn't make me sad, but it does make me happy in a way. And this is that image. Something about it, I don't know if it's the colors, the atmosphere, the detail, but it hits me a certain way that I can't explain. And it's really the catalyst of this whole series, like I said. So I wanted to dig more into it, and I wanted to get back in that. Just that one drawing was enough to make me want to start drawing again. I haven't attempted to draw until now since middle school, and I was pretty good. I wasn't like top notch, but I was pretty good. And that's the thing too, is I have been in secret working on a little drawing for the past couple days now. Definitely underestimated how much time I had, how long it would take me. But whereas I kept seeing issues and problems, and I didn't like this or that about it, the people that I did show it to, that did know about this miniseries, were like, no, like, it's really good. Like, you're being too hard on yourself, and it's hard not to. But that's where the interpretation part comes in. Whereas you may be your own worst critic, you may have flocks of people telling you your art is incredible. Another way to look at interpretations of art is Rorschach testing. I'm just going to put a couple on screen. I'm not going to pause and ask you what you think, but Rorschachs can be used to kind of study the mentality of people based on what you see first. Whereas you may have one where somebody sees a bear, you may see a butterfly. And I am not a psychiatrist, so I couldn't tell you what that means. But, and even though it is in the psychological field, I still think something about that is beautiful. And the interpretations I know I'm using that word a lot, but it's the main point of this video, is I think the power source of all art in general. Because we'll get into it next video, but music can be art, and you might interpret some music as art, whereas for me personally, I do enjoy music, but the one I guess consider the most artistic, and this wasn't even an intentional thing back then, but is really early, like 30s to 50s music, where you can hear the hiss of the gramophone, the background noise a little bit, the humming of the instruments. That hits me a certain way. It's a feeling. It's how I interpret it. But you show it to some other people and they're like, yeah, Nick's weird. It makes sense. It fits with him. But yeah, I think that in itself is such a beautiful thing to be able to witness and be a part of. And I keep wanting to get into it, but we will next time, or next episode, which you may even watch right after this one. I think when people think of art, they overlook how important it is, because it can determine an entire person's aesthetic in terms of art. It can determine someone's entire music taste or movie taste. It's just what you think to be art in itself, if that makes sense. Like with that picture I showed, I absolutely love that picture. But there may be people who are like, there's no way that's real. And I could definitely see where they're coming from, but I truly believe he put his heart and soul into that. And like I said, it hits a chord in me that's so strong, and I can't explain it. I wish I could, so that you could feel the way I feel while looking at it. But who knows? Maybe you have felt that same exact feeling towards something else, whether it be a person or an animal or a scene or anything or a smell, what have you. It just really varies person to person. And I think that's something that needs to be looked into more in art, is not just, oh, this is a good piece, this is a bad piece, this is a good song, this is a bad song. I think really starting to ask people how they feel about art or what it makes them think should be more of a driving force when looking at it, because you can really start to dig in and like find your niche with the whole area. Like I said, whether it be drawing and painting or movies and music. And it's just so much more special than I think people realize when they're looking at it at just face value. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because art also isn't for everybody. It's definitely not a small category of people, but it's not for everyone. And that's perfectly okay, because that's why there's no law against not liking art. That's why, well, there is criticism, but it's a personal thing. And again, I'm sorry if this is all over the place. I really wanted this to feel more like a conversation and have like actual emotion, because I'm very passionate about the way I feel about this. I've wanted to get back into drawing for a while, but I just haven't. And that one drawing was enough to make me look back into all this and realize why I used to and why I'm starting to again in the first place. But that's something we'll save for the third video. And, like I was saying, as far as this video goes, just next time you're looking at art or someone is showing you a drawing or you're at a museum, don't look at it at face value. Try to dig down and see if there's a bigger, stronger feeling that this is giving you. And if it's not, again, it's fine. But if it does, sometimes you just really need to channel it. Like the first time I saw that drawing, it almost brought me to tears, because it's just something makes me sad about it. And that's just what I'm getting at. is don't take all art for exactly what you see. This was episode 1 of Art, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you can walk away from maybe each one of these episodes, but at least this episode with something, you know? See ya. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of Art and its meaning, I guess we could call it. And today's episode, if you watched the last one or read the title, you will know is the different forms of it. We'll be looking at a couple different types of art. There will be more on screen stuff for this video so I can show you more examples of, and I'll show contrasts of each one. One of them a little harder than the others. But okay, let's dive right in. We'll start off with what everyone thinks of first when you hear the word art. Maybe not everyone, but most people, I'm sure. Paintings and drawings. Now, like I said in the last video, the interpretation of whether art is good or not good is totally person to person. There's no wrong or right answer with that, and it's really up to you. It doesn't matter whether you think it's important or not. One piece that you might just brush off might mean a lot to somebody else. Let's look at something that is seen as artistic from. Let's look at a painting that is seen as artistic from a objective standpoint of, oh yeah, this is art. This one right here. I don't remember the name of it. But now, let's look at Andy Warhol's Soup. It's just soup. But to him, who knows? Maybe he felt that was his magnum opus. And as simple as it is, it's still art. The difficulty in what's put into it isn't what exactly makes it art. It's whether the artist felt it was art, you know? Like, I don't know. For example, let's take Instagram as a huge catalyst of this. You have people who take pictures of their meals. They think it's art. Me personally, I don't quite understand it. But that doesn't matter. As long as they're happy with it, that's what's important. Now, let's move on to another one, is movies. I think that both Chapter 2 and The Notebook are works of art, but in different ways. Whereas I think it is artistic in the way it's able to kind of get under people's skin and creep you out. The Notebook's artistic in the way that it can tell its story. Not that it doesn't have a good story, but The Notebook's is objectively better. Well, I guess not objectively. It is better in my opinion. But that's what I mean, is you can think two pieces of work in the same medium are very artistic, but you don't have to see it in the same way because it's a very broad term. Let's throw another one in there. The Water Boy. I think that's artistic in its premise and its sense of humor, you know? And you can really throw art into any sentence. Like, you could be studying a fungus and say it's the art of science. You could be solving an equation and call it the art of mathematics. But we're talking from a basic standpoint here. Which is why I didn't get too much into like the Adam Sandler one. It was just the It and Notebook were really good ways to show that, in my opinion. Another one is sculpting, whether it's stone or ice or hedges. Sculpting is another big one. Someone might look at a stone sculpture, like the sculpture of David, and get lost in it. but then look at a hedge that someone shaved into a heart and just be not completely unfazed by it and just walk by it like, yeah, cool. But then you might also have someone else who's the exact opposite. You know what I'm saying? It comes down to person. Again, interpretation, which I guess will be the main point of this series. Uh, and it just, the way and the meaning of art, although there is a textbook definition, I was going to write it down and I forgot. That's on me. But although there's a textbook definition for it, I think art really comes down to who you are. Like with the hedge example. Whereas you might think the David statue is beautiful and ignore the heart, someone may think the heart's beautiful and ignore statue of David. And that can be go with anything like music. In the last episode, I said what music I think is art is the 30s to 50s stuff where you can hear the gramophone and the hiss, the humming of the instruments, the background noises. But then you have what, like one of my friends growing up, I won't say his name, thinks that like screamo is art. I think it's impressive. I think it's insanely impressive. I can't do it, but I don't think it's art personally. But that's okay. You don't have to see eye to eye with everybody when it comes to art. What you see as art is completely up to you, and no one's allowed to change that. Nobody's allowed to look at you and say you're wrong. Well, I mean, they're allowed to, but they're incorrect if they look at you and say you don't like this type of art that I like. You're wrong. Like that's the bottom of it. You can't do that because, and I've been saying it this whole time, is it's very person to person. It's a personal thing, and I keep repeating myself on that point too because that's, and I'll probably say it a couple more times because it is so important to remember. You can't gauge what you really think is artistic off of what somebody else thinks. And you might have similar minds with somebody. That's okay. But I'm saying you can't let someone else tell you what you think isn't artistic. Like, again, like I said in the last one, I've shown people that type of music I think is super artistic and I love it and it hits me in the feels, you know? But with them, they're like, that's weird. Why, how can you like that? Like, we have such higher quality now. Like, yeah, I know, but it takes away a little bit of that spark. But yeah. And there was another type, drawings. That's what it was. See, I told you to be stuff like that, because this isn't scripted anymore. This is off my dome. We're talking together, not at each other. But anyway, drawings. You can take a child's drawing of a house, and you can take the drawing from last time. We'll use it as an example just this final time. But those can be beautiful in their own ways. The house is because even though a kid may spend 30 seconds making that house, that drawing could mean so much to them. That's their house. And if they have a dog and a couple stick figures there, that's their family. That means a lot to that child. Not that this art is the same as the house, but I'm saying this guy put a lot of work into this one too, and it means a lot to him. Whether or not you think a piece of art looks good shouldn't be the question. Whether or not it's categorically artistic shouldn't be the question. It's what do you feel from this? Like I said, something as little as a kid's drawing of their house and family is also artistic. That kid may not have spent 6 weeks on it, but they do care about that drawing. I don't know why I'm getting aggressive. I apologize. I've been finding that this art's been really pulling something out of me. Just this passion that I've been lacking for a while, and I can't get over it. So, yeah. Now that the rant's out of the way, that's just important to remember. Art comes in many different styles, and depending on who you are, if you don't think you're artistic, then try a different form of it. Maybe it's sculpting. If you can't draw or you don't really listen to music, like I don't really listen to music anymore, but I started drawing and I loved it. But if you don't like either of those things, try painting. If you don't like painting, that's okay. Try writing poetry. That's art. If you don't want to draw, maybe you need to go outside with a hedge saw and just start carving hearts in your own property. I don't want to be liable for you, you know, shaving the neighbor's bushes into hearts and people and faces, okay? Follow the laws, but let your creativity go once in a while. You may find a hobby that you were extremely good at day one, but you never gave it the light of day because you just never thought it could be you, you know? So, yeah, don't limit yourself. Don't limit what art is when you stop limiting yourself. Just do what makes you happy. And again, doesn't matter if it takes you 30 seconds or 6 weeks. As long as it means something to you, that is art. And I think I got my point across this video. I hope you're enjoying the series so far if you've watched both episodes, and I will see you in episode 3. See ya. Hello. And in this final episode of this trilogy, I want to talk about why I think art's important and why I've decided to get back into it. Because for the past 20 minutes, if you've been watching the whole series, it's just been me talking about the interpretations of it, the different forms of it, why you should try to do it. If you'd like, obviously, I'm not going to force you or like find out who watched this and berate you if you didn't. But I think it's important to know from my standpoint why I think all of it's important. And I guess we'll just get right into it. Uh, so, art to me is super important because, like I said at the end of last episode, it allows people to express themselves in a way that they maybe otherwise can't, whether it's through music or drawings or paintings or sculptures or whatever. It's if it's something that can help anybody in any way, why not give it a shot? And that's what I've been doing is I've been finding myself really not having the urge to play video games as much, not listening to music, and I wanted to find a hands-on thing to just that I could do when I needed to. Does that make sense? That I could sit down and I could just start doing at any given point in time. And for me, that's art. That's, well, all of it's art, like I've been saying. It's drawing. And I'm not the best at it, but I enjoy it. And I think that if you are somebody who doesn't have some sort of medium or thinks that they are not artistic in any way, give any of it a try. Maybe you need to make music. Maybe you need to write poetry. And I don't want to repeat myself too much from the last video, but I feel like everybody is able to do it to some capacity. It's just the matter of putting yourself out there and trying it, not being afraid of others, what others think, not worrying whether or not people are going to like it. And that can be hard because just working on this drawing for this series alone, I can tell you that if you're somebody who doesn't draw or anything, I can tell you that for a fact, you're going to be harder on yourself than anybody else. Like, well, not always. Sometimes people are just going to harass your work because that's what people do. But chances are, if you're showing people you trust and, you love and everything, your art, there's little things like I will save what I drew for the end of the video. I tried to color it in. I was having doubts about coloring it in, and I decided I was going to anyway. I think it's a mistake, but then again, I was also told it looked really good. And that's the thing is there was little parts here and there where I was telling one of my friends like, I think this doesn't look right, or I don't like how that turned out. And they were like, no, it looks fine. Like you're doing an amazing job. And normally you hear things like that when you're working on stuff. You think it's from a place of patronizing, but from this friend, I know for a fact it wasn't. I know it was genuine. And, but the thing is I shouldn't have worried about that to begin with. A big part of art is learning to love what you're able to do. Like, this drawing took me 3 days. Granted, I don't have a ton of time to work on it, but I've put probably 6 hours into it, or close to 5, 6 hours. And whereas that may sound like a lot of time to some people, to other people that'll sound like seconds, a New York minute, because they'll spend up to weeks on drawings. Uh, and that's just not time that I have, unfortunately. And some people learn to work around it, and I think that's really cool too. Is when you find yourself in a form of art that you are so enveloped in that you make time for it, and that's something that I'm actively trying to figure out. That's why I started drawing again, and that's why it's important to me. Is I feel like, let's say you have someone who doesn't generally express their feelings, which is me. Okay, I'm able to take art and put my feelings into that. Even if the art isn't expressing how I'm feeling, it's a way for me to get my feelings out without, not that I would, but without hurting myself or others. But it's a way for, it's an outlet. And any form of art can be that. It could be music. That used to be for me, but then I found that in order to make music, I had to make myself like borderline depressed. And that's not a healthy way to do it. But with drawing, it's something you can just do, you know, and that's what it is for me. For some people, it's freestyling, which is another thing I used to do. Painting, which is not something I used to do. I can't paint for the life of me. I'm sure. Let me take that back. There should be no can'ts with art because, like I've stated several times throughout this miniseries, there's no right or wrong. There's no good or bad. It's completely objective. Objective? Is that correct? Sure, we'll stick with it. And it just, as long as you feel the heart that was put into it, and as long as you feel, even if that comes with stress, because I'll tell you, with this drawing, it's not going to be Picasso, but it stressed me out because I wanted to put that emotion into it. Not stress, but actual emotion. And I did. I'm proud of it. Like, some people are going to look at it and be like, oof, my goof, brother. And some people are going to look at it and be like, I can see the solid attempt, or that looks really good. Or they're going to be like, whoa, this isn't a drawing, you just took a picture. Probably not that last one. But I digress. I think people need to be more open to trying art, trying new things. And that's kind of been the whole background meaning of this whole series, is don't be afraid to get out there and try these things. People are going to judge you no matter what you do. But in that, people are also going to support you no matter what you do. You can take that however you'd like. I think it's incredible. I also think it's kind of depressing in a way, but not the point. As long as you're happy with the work at the end of it, or even throughout the whole process, that's what should matter. And that's why I think it's important, is it can be something people can enjoy, whether it's on their own or with someone else or anything. Sorry, I'm droning off here. I underestimated how much time all of this would take. Uh, but at the end of the day, I was going to postpone it, but I was like, you know what? No. Not because of a lack of wanting to try or effort, but because I think it's important to see sometimes the amount of energy that needs to go into it. and the amount of effort, and it's taken a lot. Like, I usually don't expend any energy. I'm just clicking with my thumbs in a game, but I wanted this to be something important and something that I look back on in the future. It's not movie quality. It doesn't need to be. At the end of the day, I'm very happy with all of this turned out. The drawing, the videos, the little edits that were here and there. And that essentially, like I've said, is what art is about. What does your work mean to you? What does your effort make you feel? You know? And if it makes other people feel things, that's awesome too. But it doesn't need to for it to be art. All that matters is that you know what you've accomplished. And even if you think it's garbage and you throw it away, you still tried. All right? Yeah. I this is like the second or third time during this series where I felt my emotions being really pushed into this. And it's not often that I do content where that happens. So I enjoyed this. I enjoyed this a lot, and I hope you did as well. I hope you can take something from it. Hope maybe you can learn something. And, you know, I hope this, if you have no art go to, this series maybe made you think, well, maybe I could dabble in this a little bit. Or maybe I could go back and retry that. And at the end of the day, as long as you're happy with it at the end of it, I'd say you did a good job. So, thank you for watching, and I hope you're having a good day. If you're watching early on, have a good rest of your day. I'll see you in the next one, and, you know, don't be afraid to express yourself. I am Sheff, and this is officially the end of our first year on the channel. See ya.